They told us it was a routine missing persons case, just another hiker lost in the mountains. They didn't tell us about the bones we found, or what was making them. Nightbound Bloodline presents 5 SAR agents share their CREEPIEST finds. Search and rescue. They are the ones who walk into the places we fear, who follow the trails that go cold, who answer the calls in the dead of night. They are trained for wilderness, for injury, for despair. But some finds train you. They reshape your understanding of the wild and of what can linger in its silent, shadowed corners. What follows are first-person accounts from 5 SAR operatives. Their identities have been protected. Their stories have not. Listen closely. Case file number 723, The Whistler. My name is David. I've been a volunteer with Mountain County Search and Rescue for, going on 18 years now. I'm an electrician by trade. Married, 2 kids. I'm the guy who fixes your wiring and tells bad dad jokes. I don't believe in ghosts. I think most Bigfoot footage is a bear and bad lighting, and I've always trusted what I can see, touch, and measure. At least, I used to. This was about 3 years ago, late October. We got a call for a solo day hiker, a man in his 60s, last seen heading up the Pine Ridge Trail. Didn't come back by nightfall. Weather was turning, a real biting cold, with a mist that clung to the firs like cobwebs. My team of 4 was assigned a grid search in a steep, boulder-strewn basin off the main path. It's the kind of place that swallows light and sound. The normalcy, it lasted until it didn't. We'd been calling out, standard procedure. Search and rescue. Can anyone hear me? The usual silence. But then, around dusk, we heard a whistle in reply. It came from the west, down in a thick stand of hemlock. It wasn't a bird. It was too deliberate. 2 sharp notes. High, then low. We all stopped. My team lead, Sarah, called out again. Hello? Sir, if you can hear us, whistle again. It was closer, maybe 50 yards. A surge of adrenaline, of purpose, went through us. We moved toward it, scrambling over moss-slick rocks. The mist was thicker here, turning the world into a gray, damp tunnel. We called. It whistled back. Closer still. 30 yards. 20. The terrain was getting impossible, a jumble of deadfall. We'd have seen him. We should have heard him moving. But there was no rustle of a jacket, no crunch of boots. Just that damn whistle, always just ahead, leading us deeper into the gully. Then, the smell hit me. It was thick, cloying, like wet fur left to rot in a damp cellar. Like something had died and been curated. Sarah gagged next to me. That's when the whistling stopped. The silence that followed was absolute. No wind. No insects. It was a vacuum. We switched on our headlamps. The beams cut through the mist, creating shifting walls of light and shadow. And that's when I saw it. Not the hiker. Between 2 gnarled tree trunks, about 15 feet away, just at the edge of my light pool, a shape. It was crouched. Its back was to us, and it was enormous. Shoulders hunched, powerful. It was covered in a patchy, dark hide, not fur, more like a mangy pelt stretched taut over muscle. Its skin seemed to glisten in the damp. It turned its head, not its body, just its head. It rotated slowly, smoothly, far further than any animal or man should be able to. I saw a long, twisted neck, corded with tendons. And its face, it had no eyes, just deep, shadowed sockets. But its mouth was a wide, lipless gash. And as it looked at us, that mouth opened slightly. It was it. It had been whistling, luring. My blood went to ice. It wasn't searching. It was fishing. The thing unfolded itself. It didn't stand up. It uncoiled, rising to a height that cleared 7 feet easily. It still didn't face us fully. It just kept its head twisted toward us, that blind gaze fixed, and then it took a single, deliberate step sideways, behind the thicker of the 2 trees. We stood there, paralyzed, beams fixed on the empty spot. A second passed. 2. Sarah finally broke the silence, her voice a trembling breath. Advance or retreat? Before anyone could answer, from behind us, back the way we came, the whistle sounded again. Now it was filled with a mocking, chattering note. It was between us and our exit. We were being herded. We ran, not with strategy, but with pure animal panic. We crashed through the undergrowth, our lights jerking wildly, creating nightmare shapes that leapt and danced. That wet, rotten smell seemed to be everywhere, clinging to us. The whistling didn't follow. It just echoed around the basin, seeming to come from 4 directions at once, a macabre surround sound. We made it to the rally point. We never found the hiker. Not a trace. The official report cites difficult terrain and adverse weather. We didn't write about the whistling. We didn't write about the watcher in the mist. What would we even say? I still go on calls. It's who I am. But I never, ever follow a voice into a gully after dark. And sometimes, when the wind is just right in the pines, I hear 2 notes, high then low. And I know, with a certainty that chills my soul, that something in those woods remembers how to sound like a person in need. And it's still hungry. Case file number 811. The stones that bleed. A search in the high, lonely places. A pattern that defies explanation. This is case file number 811. I'm Maya. I'm 34. By day, I'm a geologist. I understand strata, erosion, the slow, patient language of the earth. For the past 7 years, I've also been a member of a high-angle rescue team. Rock faces, canyons, avalanches. I operate in a world of clear physics, of ropes and pulleys and measurable risk. I need things to make sense. What we found on the Blackridge scar, it rewrote the rules. It was a call for a pair of experienced climbers. They'd failed to check in at their extraction point. The scar is a brutal, beautiful igneous intrusion, a sheer face of ancient, black granite. We started at dawn. The air was thin and crisp, the sky a hard, porcelain blue. My partner, Leo, and I were ascending a parallel crack system to the missing pair's last known route. The first anomaly was the silence. A cliff face like that should be alive with sound. The cry of raptors, the scuttle of pikas, the constant sigh of the wind channeling through fissures. There was nothing. It was a stunning, pressurized quiet, as if the mountain itself was holding its breath. Then, we saw the first cairn. Not the kind hikers build. This was deliberate, unnerving. Stones, each the size of a human skull, stacked in a precarious spiral about 3 feet high. It was placed on a narrow ledge with no logical purpose, not a trail marker, not a vantage point. The rock was the same black granite, but it was slick, shimmering with a dark, viscous dampness. I touched it with a gloved finger. It came away stained a rusty, deep red. Not water. It had the iron oxide smell of blood, but richer, older. Weird, Leo muttered, but we pressed on. The climbers were the priority. Over the next 200 feet of ascent, we found 7 more. Each spiral cairn was identical. Each wept that same dark fluid, seeping from the very pores of the stone. It was impossible. Granite doesn't bleed. I tried to rationalize it. A rare mineral deposit, a type of lichen. But my training failed me. This was a liquid, and it was fresh. The dread was a slow, cold creep up my spine, worse than any exposure on the face. We were no longer just searching. We were trespassing through a gallery of wrongness. We found the climber's final anchor point. The webbing was still there, intact, carabiners clipped and locked. The rope was gone. Not cut, not frayed. It was gone, as if it had never existed. And above the anchor, on a smooth, vertical panel of rock where no earthly hand could have reached, was the largest spiral yet. 8 feet across, drawn in that same weeping, blood-black substance. The pattern seemed to pulse in the corner of my vision, a twisting, hypnotic vortex carved into the stone itself. That's when the feeling of being observed became a physical weight, not from above or beside us, from within, the cliff face itself. I pressed my palm against the granite. It was faint, but it was there, a deep, subauditory thrum, A vibration like a slow, monstrous heartbeat transmitted through miles of solid rock. Leo radioed base, voice tight. "We've located the anchor. No signs of the subjects." Proceeding to investigate possible geological activity. He couldn't bring himself to say it. As he spoke, I watched a trickle of the dark fluid from the large spiral defy gravity. It ran sideways along a seam, then began to drip upward, beating on the underside of a stone lip before falling up into the center of the spiral pattern. My mind broke. The fundamental laws of my profession, gravity, hydrology, mineralogy, they just stopped. A shadow fell over us. Not a cloud. The sun was still blazing. This was a localized darkening, a stain on the air itself, centered on the giant spiral. The thrumming intensified. The granite under my boots felt suddenly brittle, fragile, like a thin crust over a vast, waking hollow. We didn't speak. We just descended, faster than was safe, rappelling with a frantic, graceless speed. We didn't look back. The silence followed us all the way down, that profound, listening silence of the scar. The official report lists the climbers as missing, presumed fallen. The fluid was dismissed as an unusual microbial slime. They quietly closed the route. "Permanent hazard," they said. "Unstable rock." I haven't gone back. I look at stone differently now. I see patience. I see memory. And on quiet nights, I wonder what we woke up with our pounding pitons and our shouting voices. I wonder what ancient, mineral blood we drew from that old, black wound in the earth. And I know, in the deep places of the world, the stones are not always asleep. Case file number 439, the hollow tree. Deep within the old-growth forests, where the light filters down in dusty, green columns, there are places that time seems to have forgotten. And in those places, some things remember. This is case file number 439. Name's Carl. Retired now, but I put in 32 years with the National Park Service, 20 of those on SAR. I've tracked everything from scared kids to seasoned hunters who took a wrong turn. I know the woods. I know their sounds, their moods. Or I thought I did. This was a different kind of lost. It was the dead of winter, 98. A brutal cold snap. We were looking for a family, a father and his 2 young sons, who'd gone out to photograph a famous old grove of red cedars and hadn't returned. A blizzard had rolled in behind them, wiping their trail clean. By the time we mobilized, the temperature was sitting at 10 below zero. The world was a study in monochrome: white snow, black bark, gray sky. We found their empty SUV at the trailhead. The silence in those woods was profound, not peaceful, oppressive. The usual creak and groan of frozen trees was absent. It was a vacuum. We followed the main trail for hours, our calls deadened by the snow. Then, one of the rookies, a kid named Ben, pointed off path. "Tracks," he said, but they weren't human. They were deep, punched into the crust, and they moved in a straight, purposeful line. They were bipedal, with a long, loping stride. Bigger than a man's. And they had only 3 toes. Each impression ended in a deep, puncturing gouge. Claws. We're trained to follow any sign. So we did. The tracks led us off the mapped trails, into a part of the forest so dense the snow was only a dusting on a carpet of dead, brown needles. The air grew warmer. Not by much, but enough to notice. The smell of damp earth and rot replaced the crisp, frozen scent. And there were sounds. Not animal sounds. A low, rhythmic shushing, like something being dragged through dry leaves. And a soft, wet clicking. Then we saw the tree. It was a western red cedar, but it was a monstrosity. Its trunk was wider than a car, but it wasn't solid. It was hollow. A great, gaping black maw opened in its side, taller than a man. The bark around the opening was notched with deep, parallel grooves, fresh sap frozen like black tears over the wounds. The 3-toed tracks led directly inside. The feeling of wrongness here was a physical force. The air was thick, warm, and carried a smell that's etched in my memory, like a bog, like decaying vegetation, and underneath it all, a cloying, sweet smell, almost like overripe fruit. It made my stomach turn. We shone our lights into the hollow. The beam didn't penetrate far. It swallowed the light, but it glinted off things hanging from the inner walls. Shiny things. We saw a camera on a broken strap, a child's small, red mitten, a water bottle, and bones. Not old, sun-bleached bones. These were clean, polished, deliberately arranged on ledges of inner wood. Rib cages, skulls, animal mostly, but not all. The shushing sound stopped. The clicking intensified, coming from deep within the tree, from down in its roots. It was a hungry, anticipatory sound. That's when Ben, the rookie, whispered, his voice cracking, "It's a larder." The words hung in the warm, foul air. This wasn't a den. It wasn't a nest. It was a pantry, and we were standing at the door. From the darkness inside the hollow, something moved. Not a shape, but a presence. A shifting of the deep black. And 2 points of faint, phosphorescent green light ignited, far back, deep down. They didn't blink. They just held, watching. A wave of pure, primal terror, deeper than any fear of heights or avalanche, locked my joints. This wasn't an animal defending its territory. This was something that collected, that understood value, that waited. "Back," I breathed. "Slow. Don't run." We retreated, one careful step at a time, never turning our lights away from that hungry black opening. The green pinpricks followed our movement. The clicking followed us, a soft, mocking percussion to our retreat. We never found the family. The official report lists them as victims of exposure, their remains unrecovered. The area was later closed due to hazardous deadfall. I signed the paperwork myself. I go walking in the woods near my house, but I never go into the deep, quiet places anymore. And whenever I see a hollow tree, no matter how small, I give it a wide, wide berth. Because I know now that in the oldest woods, some trees aren't just alive. Some are inhabited, and they get hungry during the long, cold winters. Case file number 912, The Watcher in the Well. Abandoned places hold echoes. Sometimes, those echoes are more than just memory. Sometimes, they are an invitation. This is case file number 912. I'm Jenna. I'm 28. I work in data analytics. Numbers, patterns, logic. I joined the county's urban SAR team 2 years ago. It was a way to get out of the spreadsheets, to do something tangible. Most of our calls are for vulnerable adults, kids in storm drains, that kind of thing. This call, it was for a place. The old Miller farmstead, abandoned since the 50s. A couple of ghost hunters with more bravery than sense had gone in at night. One came sprinting out an hour later, babbling about his friend falling down an old well. He refused to go back in. We rolled out at 2 a.m. The farmhouse was a skeleton against the moonlight, paint peeled, windows like empty eye sockets. The property had that feel, not just abandoned, but rejected. The grass was brittle and pale, even in the glow of our floodlights. No crickets, no owls. We found the well easily. It was in the cellar of a collapsed barn, a stone circle about 3 feet wide, hidden under a rotten plank floor. The guy who fell was down there, shouting. He was conscious, sounded scared but coherent. Said his leg was hurt. Standard confined space rescue. We set up the tripod, got the winch ready. I was the lightest, so I was geared up to go down. The air that rose from the well wasn't cool and damp. It was warm, and it carried a smell, ozone, like after a lightning strike, mixed with the dry, chalky scent of old stone dust. I remember thinking that was odd as they lowered me. My headlamp pierced the darkness. The walls weren't just stone. They were lined with crude, hand-chipped bricks. And they were covered in markings. Not graffiti. These were carved, gouged into the brick itself. Lines, spirals, stick figure shapes that looked like people with too many limbs. They felt older than the farm, older than the county. I shined my light down. The guy was about 20 feet below, sitting on a heap of fallen debris. He was looking up, his face a pale moon in my light. But he wasn't looking at me. He was looking past me, at the wall behind me, his eyes wide with a terror that had gone past screaming. "Don't look at them," he whispered, his voice echoing in the stone tube. The pictures. They watched back. I felt it then. The sensation was unmistakable. I was not alone in the shaft. The carvings. They weren't inert. My skin crawled with the weight of a gaze from 100 different directions. I could feel the attention of those crude, gouged-out eyes. I reached him, got him in the harness. Radioed up, ready for extraction. "It's tight down here." My voice sounded thin, swallowed by the well. As the winch began to take his weight, he grabbed my wrist, his fingers ice cold. "It's not a well," he hissed, spittle flying. "It's a chimney, and something lives in the house below." The winch pulled him up. I was alone. My light bounced off the carvings, and in that chaotic play of shadow, they seemed to shift. The stick figure limbs didn't just look like they were moving. They were moving, elongating, reaching across the bricks in a slow, stone animation. A low hum filled the shaft, vibrating up through my boots. It wasn't machinery. It was a vocalization, deep and resonant, coming from far, far below my feet. I looked down, past where the victim had been. The shaft didn't end in debris. It opened up. My light couldn't find the bottom. It just faded into a deep, impossible blackness. And in that blackness, something shifted. A vast, slow contraction, like the lung of the earth itself. A column of that warm, ozone-heavy air sighed upward, ruffling my hair. Then, from the darkness below, 2 points of light ignited. Not reflections, not minerals. They were a soft, luminous yellow, like old phosphorus. They were spaced far apart, impossibly far apart for any face I could conceive. And they were rising. The winch cable snapped taut on my harness. They were pulling me up. I rose past the carvings, and I swear the reaching figures on the walls turned their grooved heads to follow my ascent. The hum intensified, becoming a sound of frustration, a grinding stone groan. I burst out of the well into the cold night air, and I've never felt such profound relief. They sealed that well the next day with a 6-inch concrete cap. The official report cites unsafe structure and hazardous gases. I'm back at my desk now, surrounded by numbers. They're safe. They don't watch you. They don't breathe. But sometimes, when the office is too quiet, I can feel a faint, warm draft from the vent under my desk. And I remember, we didn't rescue that man from a fall. We plucked him from the attic. And whatever lives in the rooms below, it's still down there, waiting for another door to be opened. Case file number 1001, The Untethered. The final story. This account comes from a former team leader, a person whose credibility was once unimpeachable. It is the reason they are former. This is case file number 1001. My name is not important anymore. They call me Commander. I ran a specialized interagency SAR unit for 15 years. We handled the cases no one else could or would. High strangeness disappearances in national parks, the kind that get a single, cryptic paragraph in an internal memo before the file goes cold. I was a skeptic. I had to be. My job was to find rational explanations in irrational circumstances. I was so very good at it until I wasn't. Our unit was activated for a pattern, not a person, a pattern. Across 3 states, over 7 years, 9 experienced outdoorsmen had vanished under identical conditions. Clear weather, last seen near a body of water, a remote lake, a deep river bend, and always during the 3-day window of a new moon. No signs of struggle, no remains, just an absence. The 10th potential event was a prediction. Our analysts pinpointed a location, Glacier Lake, a deep, cold, mirror plate of water ringed by sheer cliffs. A solo fisherman was registered there. The new moon was that night. We were inserted as a precaution to observe and advise. A preventative measure. There were 4 of us, hidden in the tree line with night vision, thermal scopes, recording equipment. We were ghosts, there to ensure nothing happened. The fisherman, a man named Roy, was just a silhouette by a small fire as dusk fell. The lake was perfectly still, reflecting the last bruise-colored light of the sky. The silence was absolute. No loons, no frogs. It was the silence of a held breath. Then, the water began to move. Not with waves. It shimmered. A localized patch about 50 yards from shore, the surface churning as if boiling, but without bubbles or steam. In our thermal scopes, it showed as a seething, chaotic mass of contradictory temperatures, blazing hot and deathly cold in the same pixelated swirl. Roy stood up. He didn't look scared. He looked entranced. He walked to the water's edge, his movements smooth, dreamlike. That's when we saw them. Figures, rising from the lake, from the epicenter of the shimmer. Not walking out, just manifesting from the water itself, as if they were made of it. Their forms were humanoid, but blurred, like a reflection in a disturbed pond. In thermal, they were voids, absolute zero, sucking the heat from the air around them. They were the untethered. They moved toward the shore, not through the water, but across it. Their feet didn't break the surface. The shimmer followed them, a trailing aurora of wrong physics. Our training evaporated. This wasn't a rescue. This was a predation, and we were witnessing the predators. I keyed my radio, my voice a dry crackle. All units move in. Intercept subject Roy. Now. We broke from the tree-line, shouting. Roy turned his head toward us, and I will never forget his face. It was peaceful, serene, a small, grateful smile. He raised a hand, not to us, but to the approaching figures. Then he stepped into the water. He didn't wait. He walked on the surface for 3 steps. Then the lead untethered figure reached for him. Their forms didn't touch. They merged. Roy's body seemed to dissolve into the shimmer, his thermal signature fragmenting, breaking apart like sand in a wave, and then flowing into the void shape of the creature. In 2 seconds, he was gone. Not drowned. Absorbed. The untethered stopped. The shimmer settled around them. And then, all of them, 4, maybe 5 shapes, turned their featureless heads toward us, standing exposed on the shore. The cold hit. Not a wind. A wall of absolute, soul-sucking cold that had nothing to do with temperature. It was the cold of the void between stars. My breath froze in my lungs. My thoughts slowed, gummed up with an ancient, desolate loneliness that wasn't my own. It was an invitation, a promise of an end to all struggle, all pain, all weight. Just stillness. One of my men, Riggs, took a step forward, toward the water, that same peaceful look dawning on his face. I screamed, a raw, animal sound, and tackled him. The spell broke. The untethered watched, indifferent. Then, as one, they turned and moved back across the lake, dissolving into the shimmer, which then faded into the dark, placid water. We found Roy's camp. His coffee was still warm by the fire. His rod was still set. He was gone. I filed my report. Every detail. I was suspended, then quietly retired with a full pension and a strong recommendation for psychiatric evaluation. The official line is a tragic drowning, a body never recovered. The pattern of disappearances continues. I check the missing persons databases every new moon. I don't sleep much. When I do, I feel that cold. Not in the room. In me. They showed me what waits in the quiet, dark places of this world. Not monsters. Something worse. Emptiness that hungers. And they didn't take me because I wasn't ready. But they show me the door. And someday, when the weight gets too heavy, I know exactly where to find it. 5 accounts. 5 fractures in the reality we think we know. A whistler in the mist that mimics our calls for help. A mountain that bleeds dark, impossible fluid. A hollow tree that serves as a winter larder. A well that is a chimney for something living far beneath. And the untethered, who offer not violence, but a chilling, peaceful dissolution. These are not ghost stories told around a campfire. They are field reports from the edge of human understanding. Each witness began as we are, skeptical, grounded, armed with logic and training. And each was confronted with something that systematically dismantled that worldview. The horror does not lie in fangs or claws, though those are present. It lies in the intelligence behind the mimicry. It lies in the ancient, patient malevolence of a landscape that is not inert, but aware. It lies in the realization that when we venture into the wild, we are not just visitors. We are potential entries on a menu, curiosities in a collection, or candidates for a far quieter, more profound vanishing. These SAR operatives walked into the unknown so others might not have to. They carried the weight of official silence so the public could sleep soundly. But they have shared their truths with us, a testament to the things that linger in the cartographic blanks, the places where the maps say here there be nothing, but the old instincts in our blood whisper, here there be something. If you have a story, an encounter that defies explanation, we are listening. Share it in the comments below. Your account could be the key to another's understanding. If the shadows in these tales held you, give this video a like and subscribe to Nightbound Bloodline. We are dedicated to bringing these whispers from the dark into the light. This has been Nightbound Bloodline. Thank you for listening. Until next time, sleep with one eye open.